What if I told you that Marvel took a character fans once loved and somehow managed to completely destroy the brand in just a few years? A character who used to be fun, confident, and wildly entertaining suddenly became one of the most disliked heroes in modern Marvel history. The show flopped, the comics keep getting canceled, and now Marvel seems completely lost on what to do next. So the real question is, did Marvel accidentally kill the She-Hulk brand? Because the latest cancellation and the direction they're pushing this character in might prove the damage is even worse than people thought. And if you enjoy breakdowns like this on Hollywood and pop culture, make sure you hit subscribe, because we cover stories like this all the time. Now let's talk about what really happened to She-Hulk. Marvel once had something special with She-Hulk. For years in the comics, she was a fan favorite character. She had personality, humor, and that unique ability to break the fourth wall long before it became a trendy gimmick. She wasn't just another Hulk variant either. She had her own identity. Jennifer Walters was confident, charismatic, and unlike Bruce Banner, she actually embraced the power she received. Becoming She-Hulk didn't feel like a curse to her. In many ways, it empowered her. But somewhere along the way, Marvel completely lost sight of what made that character work. Instead of a fun, self-aware hero with flaws and personality, the modern version turned into something very different. The writing became preachy, the tone became smug, and suddenly it felt like the character wasn't talking with the audience anymore, but talking down to them. And fans noticed immediately. Then there was the Disney Plus show. A lot of viewers were expecting a lighthearted legal comedy with superhero chaos mixed in. That was the promise. But what they got instead left many longtime fans scratching their heads. The CGI became a huge talking point online. Instead of looking like a polished Marvel production, a lot of people said the character looked unfinished, almost like something pulled from a mobile game. But visuals were only part of the problem. What really frustrated audiences was the tone of the writing. Instead of celebrating the character or telling compelling stories, the show often seemed more focused on mocking critics and lecturing the audience. And that's a risky move for any franchise, because when a brand starts treating its own fan base like the enemy, things usually don't end well, and in this case, they didn't. After the show aired, the excitement around She-Hulk dropped dramatically. Merchandise slowed down. Future appearances became uncertain, and suddenly the character who once headlined successful comic runs was barely being talked about anymore. Aside from occasional rumors like a possible appearance in Secret Wars, Marvel has been mostly silent about where She-Hulk fits into the future of the MCU. And that silence speaks volumes. But the problems don't stop with the show. You can actually see the impact in the comics as well. Now, yes, comic book sales across the industry have struggled in recent years. That's true. But there are still certain titles that break through and perform extremely well. For example, when a comic genuinely connects with readers, it shows. You see strong sales, strong fan engagement, and strong demand. But that hasn't been the case with She-Hulk. Once again, Marvel has had to end another She-Hulk comic run early. Officially, the explanation is that the series is wrapping up, so Marvel can explore a different direction. But let's be honest here, when a comic is doing great numbers, it rarely ends suddenly. If a book were performing like a massive hit, it would keep going. Instead, we're seeing yet another cancellation. And now, Marvel's latest attempt to revive interest involves something called Planet She-Hulk. Yes, you heard that right. The name alone immediately reminds fans of Planet Hulk, which is widely considered one of the best Hulk storylines ever written. But here's the problem. The entire reason Planet Hulk worked was because Bruce Banner was considered too dangerous to remain on Earth. The story was built around that premise. Trying to replicate that concept with She-Hulk feels confusing to say the least. It's the kind of idea that makes fans wonder if Marvel is simply recycling old concepts instead of developing stories that actually fit the character. And based on the reaction so far, it hasn't exactly reignited excitement. In fact, reports suggest the series will end much earlier than expected, with issue 6 acting as the final chapter. The writer of the series even acknowledged that this wasn't originally the plan, hinting that sudden changes inside Marvel's publishing strategy forced the story to wrap up sooner than expected. Which usually points to one simple reality. The book just isn't performing. And the truth is, this has become a pattern that fans have been noticing for quite a while now. A new She-Hulk series launches, Marvel promotes it for a little while, interest starts to fade, sales drop off, and before long, the series quietly disappears. Then, a few months later, the exact same thing happens again. A new relaunch, a brand new issue number 1, a new direction that promises to fix everything. And yet somehow the result always seems to circle back to the same outcome. Low interest, weak sales, another cancellation. At this point, it almost feels like a cycle that keeps repeating itself. And every time that cycle repeats, it becomes harder and harder to rebuild real excitement around the character. Because when fans see the same pattern happen over and over again, they start to lose confidence that the next reboot will actually be different. Now, Marvel seems to be trying a different approach. Instead of pushing these characters in their own solo books, they're experimenting with putting several of them together into large cosmic team-style stories. The thinking here is pretty obvious. If one character can't carry a book on their own, maybe a group of them together can create enough interest to pull readers in. So the current idea floating around involves characters like She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Shuri, and a few others being thrown into a shared cosmic storyline. On paper, that might sound like a big, ambitious concept, but it also raises a pretty obvious question. Will people actually read it? Because if fans weren't particularly interested in those characters when they had their own titles, combining them into a single book doesn't automatically solve the problem. In some cases, it can actually make things even more confusing for readers who are already feeling disconnected from the direction Marvel has taken. And this situation feeds into a much larger conversation about Marvel's overall direction as a company. For years now, fans have been debating whether Marvel has slowly drifted away from what originally made its characters so compelling. The characters used to feel larger than life, but also relatable. The stories were exciting, dramatic, and sometimes even a little unpredictable. Lately, though, some fans feel like the focus has shifted. Some believe Marvel has leaned too heavily into messaging instead of storytelling. Others think the bigger issue is simply a lack of creative consistency between the movies, the shows, and the comics. Whatever the exact cause might be, the She-Hulk situation has become one of the clearest examples of how quickly a once popular character can lose momentum if the audience disconnects from the direction. This was a character who once had a strong fan base, successful comic runs, and a unique personality that stood out in the Marvel universe. Now, instead of building on that legacy, Marvel seems to be constantly trying to restart the character from scratch, and every restart makes it harder to bring the excitement back. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean the character is permanently finished. In the world of comics and Hollywood, brands have been revived before. Sometimes all it takes is the right writer, the right story, or the right creative vision to completely turn things around. But until Marvel finds that formula again, the She-Hulk brand may continue to struggle. And that brings us to the big question. What do you think? Did Marvel lose the essence of what made She-Hulk work in the first place? Or do you think the character can still make a major comeback if handled the right way? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what people think about this situation. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos covering everything happening in Hollywood and the comic book world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.